Alrighty, so today I'm gonna do just a post about my Marco deck. I've been asked on comments of previous videos of the Marco build that I use. It's generally this one, and I have another one called Marco 2. It's very similar. The only difference is really the Ace and the rates of my removals. But generally speaking, of course, Marco, his leader ability, minus one Dawn, minus 2k for an enemy, and you get to basically place your top deck or bottom deck with one of your cards in hand that you draw. And yeah, it's pretty solid. It's almost like a pseudo Sakazuki, but you actually have to use a Dawn in this case. This deck, I don't run Nami. A lot of the times, Nami is a great choice, but just in this version, it's if you choose to run Nami, great. If not, great. This is just what I like to run, and then I'll show the other one. Very similar. It's just basically ace, the difference of aces. Again, just to go into the second deck quickly, so people don't want to watch the entire video, they could just take a quick peek and take a look. And in this case, this is what it is. Obviously, I add this ace as well. And I add blocker Marco to synergize with this ace because I don't really run a lot of 4 cost sub that are Whitebeards. So it's kind of pointless to run this type of ace without something like a Marco, Speed Jill, things like that. You could run a Nami, but I find when I run Namis, I'm just sacrificing a little bit too much removal, or if I'm sacrificing another Whitebeard character that I could be searching for. I'm just going to load. And of course, if you do run Nami, if you don't run, say like a Straw Hat uh, Whitebeard build, similar to like old school Whitebeard decks, uh, you might not get Nami every game. And if you do, you have to search for her, or sorry, you have to like draw free, like just top deck her, draw her, or she's a part of your mulligan or what have you. So in this case, obviously pretty standard Otama to synergize for the pops. You got Whitebeard, classic, 2K Jozu, who's a Rush Ace, Ezo, Searcher, a lot of Whitebeard characters. You got your Popper Marco, so pop 5Ks with just leader ability and Marco, so that's a 6K, a 6 Dawn turn, pretty clean. Of course, you have Rayleigh, who basically pops everybody. With leader ability, he could pop up to a 8K, so that's pretty useful against like Kid and the Green Kid and things like that. Pudding, because Pudding is one of the best characters in my opinion in the game for blue, so you should always run it. Sanji, because it's perfect synergy, so you can run Sanji into Whitebeard, Ace, Rayleigh, or even Marco. Just because you'll do the 5K, and then if you don't have Rayleigh or Whitebeard or Ace, you could just drop the Marco to pop a 5K. Right. Of course, blocker Ace because it lets you feed. So your 7 Dawn turn, as an example, you could pre-prep place your Sanji, and then, of course, you're another 2K who could be buffed 2K if you have 2 Whitebeards, but you have to show your hand. Namul, which is similar to Ace, but just a cheaper version. Also a blocker, lets you place as well. So if you don't have this Ace, you can run Namul. I find when I'm running Namul with the other version, I just have that Ace, and I'm really trying to run that Ace with the Namul combo at 7 cost. So, or at my 7 Dawn turn, or even my 8 Dawn turn just to get the placement. So I save that extra Dawn for my leader ability, or I get to actually play Sanji on my 9 Dawn turn without using leader ability. Of course, Seaquake, simple pop, 5Ks early game. Great on Lucci's, great on laws, great on like the current meta. So we'll see how this transforms. I haven't been too into the Japanese scene for how Marco does. He's not crazy good, but he's not bad. But again, it's just one of those things where we'll see as the meta develops. Of course, Gum Gum Jet Pistol. So I actually used a 1,000 Way Dragon thing. Let me just look it up so I say the name correctly. Dragon, yeah, Azure Dragon Stamp, Flowing Water. Yeah, there's no way I got that. It's a 3 cost, but it goes well with Marco ability. But you only pop up to 7Ks. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, Daniel, really good player. He was like, "Yeah, just switch it up for Gum Gum for Jet Pistol. It's 1 Dawn difference, but you could pop 8 cost kids, right? Which is crucial against like the new Jewelry Bonnie. Well, not necessarily that she runs it, but Fortress Yamato Fortress, Utas, things like that. Just if you have an AK to pop, which is great. Of course, Red Rock, classic, the best removal in the game, in my opinion. And last but not least, Gravity Blade. So the way this deck plays, of course, I do have a couple of games on my channel already. You want to keep Marco up until you could drop your end game drops like Ace, Rayleigh, Whitebeard, Sanji, but his one weakness is just eating too much damage early game. He has no real way of healing. He has no real way of a sustain. I don't run any defensive events, so if you do want to run a Rad Beam, you do want to run a guard point or something like that, by all means, feel free. This is just how I like to play. Of course, I don't like to run too many defensive events because it leaves me with it forces me to keep Dawn up in turn, and I pre-prep my Dawns in turn, and I can't predict how big they're going to swing, right? So that being said, if I utilize all my Dawn, all I'm left off with counter, so it's pretty easy math for me, and if it's simple, it works for me. Anyways, let's look at ace number or Marco number 2. Pretty straightforward, and of course, it's very similar. Like I said, so all I'm doing is dropping an extra Marco, dropping this extra ace, and then I reduce. Where do I take away? I reduce my bigger removals. So obviously, Gravity Blade is down 1, Red Rock's down 1, and Jet Pistol's down 1. To be honest, I actually prefer this deck compared to the other deck. The other deck plays more control heavy. You can remove more characters, move more things, but this deck you flood a little bit easier just because of the ace. And overall, Pudding is there for spice because it's fun. But overall, I prefer this style of deck. And in this one, in my videos where I actually play this one. But instead of Jet Pistol, I'm just running the 1,000 the Azure Dragon Stamp Flowing Water, just because I didn't switch over yet. But I found when I swapped over to Jet Pistol, it was actually a little bit better. Yeah, I'll catch y'all on the next one.